they're going to get the ball up in time. Clark for the win.
Caitlin Clark is the face of basketball. When I'm preparing for a Caitlin Clark game, I'm preparing to be amazed.
The little kid in me is freaking out. I'm speechless.
Also want to make sure that I'm keeping the viewers informed.
Ready for some history?
Let's do it.
Here comes Clark. How will she go for history? There it is! Caitlin Clark broke the record in 2 minutes and 12 seconds.
We talk about you can see her, you can be her. People can't watch women's sports unless it's on TV or accessible to them. You build it, they will come. So I think right now it's finally people seeing that people are interested in women's sports, and we need to create opportunities to experience them in person and over the air on broadcast as well. Volume of coverage is so important, making sure that women's sports are on major networks, major platforms, that we're not just getting the championship game, that we're seeing the entire journey. I think we've come a long way with that, of just seeing women compete on big platforms. I would love to see diversity of coverage, and what I mean by that is, okay, yeah, we want to cover the game, but we want a pregame show, we want a postgame show, we want halftime, we want analysts and different people giving their opinions, we want debates, we want discourse around women's sports, right? Because you can have a hot take just like you do with the men. All those little nuances that you see on the men's side, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's explain the game to people. Let's explain how she creates space. I want to see that when it comes to volleyball. I want to see that when it comes to lacrosse, like all these different sports. Let's educate people on the skill that we're seeing across these games, because women are amazing and what they're doing is super, super difficult, and I want people to appreciate that. It's that balance of appreciation and realizing where we are, but also continuing to move forward in what we want.
It counts! Just in time!
When it comes to bias and making sure that you're covering female athletes in the correct way, I always say, you know, like anything in life, like make sure that your circle is diverse. Make sure the sports that you're watching are diverse. If you're gonna comment on women's sports, make sure you're watching them just as much as you're watching the men. Just make sure that you have a diverse train of thought, both in life and in sport. Whatever you do for the men, don't change it for the women. If anything, be better. Be better when you're covering the women, because that's what the sport deserves. Yeah, I don't want people to think of it as I'm covering a women's sport or a man's sport, right? Like, we call it hoops is hoops. But whatever it is, just make sure you're bringing your best. My charge to journalists everywhere, you don't change your standard when you're covering politics versus education versus crime. You shouldn't change your perspective when you're covering a male sport versus a female sport. You want to do your best whether you're covering football, basketball, golf, tennis, gymnastics. Make sure that you have your background on the athletes. You need to know their stories, you need to prepare, treat them like humans and like athletes, and bring your best, because that's what they deserve and that's what they expect. I think Caitlin Clark understands that she's the draw right now. It's where the sport is at. She's got flash, she's got flair, she's elevating it. You've got little kids who are looking up at the screen on a sports show and saying, oh yeah, I know Caitlin Clark. She is that person right now, men's or women's, and the sport is better because of Caitlin Clark.
History on the horizon for Caitlin Clark.